everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be predicting where every top available free agent lands, where every top quarterback lands. We'll be predicting the quarterback carousel, the top trade candidate quarterbacks, free agent quarterbacks, and draft prospect quarterbacks. We're going to be predicting where all of them land, kind of uh, deciding the carousel. So it should be fun. Mac Jones took himself off the list this morning right before recording. He is a Jaguar. So I guess, how are you, Josh? And what are your thoughts on Mac Jones of the Jaguars? That is interesting.
That's weird. Yeah, I guess I don't really understand why. I feel like that's not even really a good. Really, you kind of want your backup quarterback to be a like almost like a head coach in a sense, like a coach. And yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, I guess, for terms of depth for backup, I feel like Mac Jones could maybe thrive a little bit better under Doug Peterson in Jacksonville, given if Trevor goes down. But yeah, interesting. I mean, maybe a little bit of quarterback competition. Trevor kind of struggled last year. That entire draft class has really turned out to be a disaster class. Outside of Brock Purdy, who's Mr. Irrelevant, and he's the best one. So all these top guys are all looking for new homes, and then obviously minus Trevor. But yeah, Mac Jones officially off the carousel. Had to take him out early this morning. More news last night. Chris Jones signed a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Chiefs, so he is off the free agent market going into tomorrow, where the legal tampering period starts. So yeah, this should be a fun one. And tomorrow gets crazy. So tomorrow ramps up. Tomorrow gets crazy. We want to put this out beforehand to give you guys a little sneak peek of what we think might happen before tomorrow.
Yeah, you mentioned Chris Jones off the board. The best free agent is off the board. And yeah, we're going to be at you with all the live reactions and grades to all these signings. So definitely stay tuned. It's going to be fun. We're going to be predicting where all the top free agents available land after we predict the quarterbacks. And yeah, back to Mac Jones. It is an interesting move. Like, a 6-round pick is a pretty valuable asset in this draft. I really do. Like, I think any picks in this draft are valuable, especially for the Jaguars. And for a 1-year rental, it is interesting. Mac Jones has got to be one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league, I would say. But as a 1-year rental, it is just an interesting move, and it's interesting. But I mean, I respect it. He is a good backup. But do you want to just get into the carousel?
Yeah, and it just seemed like Patriots just wanted Mac Jones gone. They needed a culture reset, and I think they took whatever they could get for him. And apparently a 6 was the best.
Yeah, it was definitely for the best. But with that, we'll go on to the first quarterback. We're going to predict where he lands. It's kind of going to start the domino effect. It should be the first big quarterback news announced as well. I think he's going to probably announce it like tonight or tomorrow, like right before free agency officially starts. So it's going to be really fun to see where he ultimately decides between. I think he is between the Falcons or Vikings. I really don't think there's any other teams in the running. There was a report the other day, though, that said Pro Bowl quarterback Kirk Cousins is seriously considering moving his family to Atlanta, which would mean he's planning on signing with the Falcons. And his wife, Julie, grew up in Georgia. Her parents still live there. So there is a connection. If, last year, the thing holding him back from leaving the Vikings was, moving his family and all that. And I mean, if his wife's family's in Atlanta, I guess it does make sense. And from like a football schematic standpoint, I think him and Zach Robinson really are like a perfect meshing and a really perfect pairing. I didn't think it was in the cards. I thought he was for surely staying, but it's a perfect pairing if he could go to the Falcons and throw to Bijan and Kyle Pitts and London with all those weapons with Zach Robinson, a really great offensive mind stemming from McVay. I love that. I love the fit. So I'm kind of rooting for him to go to the Falcons just because I think it would be so fun. But I've had a gut feeling he's going to stay for a while. So I am pretty torn. But what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I ultimately put the Atlanta Falcons. I think Kirk Cousins is kind of in that stage of his career. I think it's time to move on from the Vikings. And Atlanta and the NFC South is wide open. It's wide open. I mean, it's a division that's wide open and easy for the taking, honestly. It's probably one of the easier divisions in football right now. And I think, Atlanta has the talent and they're just missing that quarterback. And Kirk Cousins could be that quarterback. They have a really good defense led by Jesse Bates, who had an incredible year last year. And then, yeah, the offensive star power with Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. I think it would be a really good fit. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to, require a 3-year deal. He knows how to play free agency. He's done it before. And I think he might price the Vikings out.
I think that's kind of the thing here is the Vikings are going to want a 2-year deal. I project Kirk will get a 3-year deal just because of how big his market will be. There's going to be a lot of teams trying for him, even like the Broncos and the long shot teams. They're going to be at least trying. So he's going to have a market, and it's going to raise that price up. We have his projected average per year at 38 million. I think we have a 3-year, $38 million deal projected for the Falcons. I think that's what we're going to
Fully
ultimately
guaranteed. Fully
Yeah.
guaranteed too. Yeah, he's not gonna. And that's the thing too with the Vikings is they would probably want to do, a 2-year with an out in the second year. And Kirk knows how to play free agency. He's gonna want a 3-year, 3 years fully guaranteed. And I don't think the Vikings can do that. I do not think they can.
Yeah, the Vikings might offer him like a 2-year 40 million APY deal, but it won't be fully guaranteed. And so it could be just, more beneficial for Kirk to go to the Falcons and have that long-term stability on that contract. But with that, do you want to move on to Baker? Anything else you want to say in Kirk's prediction?
No, but yeah, he's the first domino. It'll be fun to see where he ends up going because he could flip around the Falcons really quick and make them immediate playoff contenders.
Yeah, it will be interesting domino. It will start the whole quarterback carousel. But with that, we'll go to the next quarterback that's going to command a pretty penny on the open market, and that is Baker Mayfield, the Buccaneers quarterback, coming off that playoff win against the Eagles. So that is what is really driving that price up. We project him at a $32 million per year contract, probably a 3-year deal. We're both pretty positive he returns to the Bucks. I don't think we've ever entertained Baker going elsewhere this whole offseason. It's a pretty obvious dynamic. They were really proud and happy with how he did last year. They really exceeded expectations. So it makes sense you run it back with him and Mike Evans. And they already brought Mike Evans back. I think that indicated that Baker's 100% coming back. So I think we'll predict a 3-year, $32 million deal. And it's a good one. Like, I'll be honest, paying Baker this much might be a little bit crippling. Might in a year or two, you might regret it. It might be the Daniel Jones situation when it's all said and done. I'm just going to be honest, but he is coming off a great season, and you kind of have to pay him if you're the Bucks.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield bet on himself last year. He signed a 1-year, $4 million deal and outplayed the hell out of it and earned himself a big payday. And I feel like it would be quite silly if the Bucks let him walk. I don't feel like they really can. It's not like I don't feel like they're going to be competitive in the market for anyone else for free agency. And I don't feel like they can be competitive for anyone in the draft. So, they already re-signed Mike Evans. They franchise tagged Antoine Winfield, and now Baker Mayfield's going to get that long term, big money deal. So yeah, it just makes all too much sense. And there's been no rumors about Baker going anywhere else.
Yeah, I really don't even see them bringing in a rookie or bringing in competition. I predict Drew Lock. I'll extend this quarterback carousel. I predict them to bring in Drew Lock and just be a good backup for Baker. It feels like a really good quarterback room, and I could see Drew eventually starting there. But yeah, you have to predict Baker to come back coming off that 77 PFF grade a year. He had just a great season overall. Just throwing it up to Mike Evans, trusting him, and they exceeded. So don't have to talk about Baker too much. He's gonna go back to the Bucks. Do you want to go on to the next one?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll start it off with these rookie prospect quarterbacks. We're gonna predict where they all land, and we'll do the hard one first. Caleb Williams, a little bit hard to predict where he lands, but ultimately we'll have him ending up with the first overall pick for the Chicago Bears. And what an upgrade this is for Bears fans. You got to be happy about it. Justin Fields is, he's good. He's still a question mark though, heading into his, I think it's 5th season. And Caleb Williams is one of the best quarterback prospects I have watched personally. The way he just extends plays and makes plays out of structure, and just his play making ability is so special. He really is Mahomesy in the way that he just plays out of structure, and the things he does with his arms are nasty. It's just beautiful stuff. So Caleb is my favorite quarterback prospect I've watched in a long time. I could talk about him all day, but he's the Bear, and the Bears are going to be so happy about it. In mid-season, they're going to forget Justin Fields' name.
No, 100%. And I feel like, at this point, the Bears, it would take just, an insane offer, which, it'd be a team selling their entire future for Caleb Williams. And then the Bears would still probably heavily be considering. I know the only team that I could think that would do that would be the Commanders. trying to just move up one spot, and they're probably going to make the Bears say no to it. They'll make the Bears consider and think, but the Bears don't want that Mahomes effect. They don't want to pass on, the next great generational quarterback. I think Justin Fields is a really, really good quarterback and can be a really good quarterback. But yeah, you don't pass up on a prospect like Caleb. And not only, you know, that, but with the money side of things, Justin Fields is going to require a payday here soon, where you can reset your rookie quarterback window for the next 5 years, which is just such an advantage for the Bears right now, who already have a pretty decent roster and have really high picks. This year they have two in the top 10, so it's just a really, really good spot to build off of a rookie quarterback and bring in some big name free agents because you're one of the teams with the most cap space in the entire NFL. So it just makes all too much sense. Get rid of Justin Fields for whatever draft capital you can. Get a big draft, have two top 10 picks, obviously one of them being Caleb, maybe another wide receiver. And yeah, the Bears fans be excited. It's a positive outlook for you. You might be a competitive team next year under a rookie quarterback. And yeah, Caleb Williams has that Mahomes feel, has that Mahomes effect, and the Bears would make a fool out of themselves if they ended up passing on him.
Yeah, I really love what you said. Financially, getting a borderline top 10 quarterback as a rookie before even playing a snap on a rookie contract. And then, you have a lot of money to spend on building your roster elsewhere around him. It's going to be a really fun situation. I'm going to be higher on this Bears team. I'm already like predicting them to be playoff contenders. I think they're going to be really, really good in the NFC. So with that, we'll go on to a similar type of discussion with Drake Maye. We both, I'll speak for you because I'm pretty sure that you expect it to be a lock at 2. I think we both think that the draft starts at 3, and Drake Maye is going to be a commander. We have the Redskins logo up here. We got to respect the OG Redskins logo always. Is that what you're laughing at? Respect the
Just
OG
troll.
Redskins logo. Drake May to the Washington Redskins, second overall. It's just a beautiful fit, and you can lock it in. He's similar to Caleb Williams in that generational quarterback tier, and it's fun for the Commanders that you get to build around like a borderline top 10 quarterback on a rookie contract. It's just fun stuff. So you got to respect the Redskins, and I think we both lock in Drake May to the Redskins.
Like crying out of my eyes.
The Redskins are making you, I think you're crying because you just missed the Redskins logo and team so much. It's just
Oh,
bringing back emotions.
oh, that's funny. Oh, that's good stuff. Wow. Um, that's great. I don't even know where we're at anymore.
Drake made of the skins, man.
Skins up, baby. Skins up. But yeah, yeah, okay. I'll regroup myself here. But yeah, Drake may be really excited. And this kind of feels like making up for, the Chase Young pick and passing on Justin Herbert here. You go get a different version of Justin Herbert. I really like that. I really like the fit. You got to start out, with your new ownership, new head coach. You got to start out with a polarizing, rookie quarterback. And Drake May is that. There's some talks about Jayden Daniels. I don't see it. I look at Jayden Daniels. I watch Drake May. And Drake May is like what you build a quarterback out of, like a Madden franchise mode. He's big. He's built. He's smart. He interviews well, and he's just got an absolute cannon for an arm. And he's sneakily fast. I mean, he's got that Josh Allen, Justin Herbert sneakily fast. And that's who I compare him to. I think Drake May has a super, super high upside. I think it might even be higher upside than, it's kind of hard to say, but it's close. It's close to Caleb Williams. And whatever team ends up getting Drake May, which I think it'll be the Redskins. I think yeah, they're going to be super happy about it because I think Drake May is going to be an awesome prospect.
He is a very awesome, can't miss prospect. I like the comparisons. I compare him to Jordan Love. It's kind of like that Herbert and Josh Allen hybrid, and he does have that like Josh Allen trait where he'll just run around and make crazy plays, and it's going to be fun for you Commanders fans to have this guy as your franchise quarterback because you've got some good receivers that he can play around with, and you can make that roster a little bit better around Kingsbury and May. I think that's a pretty good pairing. So don't think we need to talk about this one too much. It's gonna happen. Do you want to move on to the next rookie quarterback?
Yes, sir. Dude, that OG Redskins logo is so sick. Oh my
It
god.
is. It's so legendary, man. The uniforms that they wore with it, it's just it
Oh,
was perfect.
So clean, so clean.
I'm gonna get emotional thinking about it. We'll go on to the next quarterback, Jayden Daniels, a very polarizing quarterback. You could see him going number 3 overall. You could see him falling a little bit. He's viewed very differently in a lot of people's eyes. I'm personally a little bit lower on Jayden, but I do think he still goes like around 3 to 5. The quarterback premium is just too much in this league, but we both predict him to go to like the Falcons or Raiders. I could see the Giants too. Just those teams at the top of the draft that any of these teams could trade up for him and whoever falls in love with him. But yeah, if Kirk doesn't go to the Falcons, I think I could see a Jayden Daniels, Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts team really working out. So I think that would be really electric. And then a big link, kind of this whole process has been Jayden Daniels to the Raiders. You know, played with Antonio Pierce in college at Arizona State, and they're really familiar with each other. They've been hanging out kind of this off season. So there's a lot of links for that. And I could totally, I think my prediction is that the Raiders will kind of sell the farm and go trade up for Jayden Daniels. It seems like Antonio Pierce has been kind of hinting at it as well, just saying that if you need a quarterback, you give up what you need to go get that guy. So I don't know. I see the Raiders getting Daniels, but what are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree. Between the Raiders and the Falcons, I think somebody's gonna play that game of chicken, and whoever, somebody they're gonna wait till he hits a certain point, and then the Raiders and the Falcons are gonna be calling. I think once you hit, honestly, what I've been hearing lately is we could realistically see 4 quarterbacks back to back to back to back, which would be just nuts. I don't think we've ever seen that. I know we've seen 3, but they're seriously talking about 4 quarterbacks, and with the needy teams and the Broncos too, and the Giants. And then my gosh, there's really honestly about 5 teams that could trade up for Jayden Daniels, and I mean I think the Raiders make sense. The Falcons are the closest. I think if Jayden Daniels gets to 5 with the Chargers, I think that's the Falcons' sweet spot right there. Depending on if they get Kirk, of course. Depending on if they get Kirk, of course. But if he gets to 5, they don't have a quarterback. They're calling the Chargers. They are. They know the Raiders can't trade with the Chargers. The Raiders probably be on the phone with the Giants. And then obviously the Cardinals, they'd have to give the Cardinals a farm to trade out of Marvin Harrison Jr. because you're letting Marvin Harrison Jr. fall to 5. And so it's tricky. It really is tricky because you're gonna have to, if you're going to 4 and you're wanting, the Cardinals to miss on Marvin, you're gonna have to give a farm. But if he gets to 5, I could really see the Falcons. That's where, and if they don't get Kirk, of course, that's the sweet spot for the Falcons to trade up, ultimately jump the Giants, who apparently the Giants are done with Daniel Jones. I don't know if you've been hearing that too, but the Giants want to move off of Daniel Jones. They do not like him.
Yeah, no, I think the Giants are definitely in the thick of this conversation. If Dable likes him, he could easily get him there in a really good spot to do so. So I could totally see the Giants being the team for Daniels ultimately. Maybe we should have put them up on the graphic, but they are that third team. The Falcons and Vikings, though, I think are like, whatever team doesn't get Kirk, maybe the Vikings could go get Jayden Daniels, keep him in the purple and yellow could be a good fit as well. So Jayden Daniels is definitely one with multiple options, just kind of depending on that trade up spot. But I think we both ultimately will predict the Raiders if we had to bet on it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think the Raiders could make an absolute haul for the 4th pick, and ultimately be the team that trades up to get him. And obviously, Antonio Pierce said that. He flat out said that if you want to go get your quarterback, which I think Jayden Daniels is just a guy they'd really fall in love with. You know, they're gonna have no problem trading 2, 3 first-round picks and maybe even a player to go get him. So.
Yeah, don't be too surprised if the Raiders go and trade up to 3 for the Heisman winner. But with that, we'll go on to the next rookie quarterback we're going to talk about, and a very polarizing one as well as rising up boards right now, gaining a lot of steam. Once we get closer to the draft, because he's interviewing with these coaches, and he's a very personable guy, really good personality, aura around him. So these coaches are going to fall in love with him. I'm very confident that one of these guys is going to trade up for him and he's going to go top 10. I think his definite floor is 12, and a lot of people in this sports media world will tell you differently. I think a lot of people are just too low on JJ. But yeah, I would say his floor is 12, but ultimately I think he's not going past 10 just because I think the Vikings or Broncos, who we have as their fits, will have to trade up for him. So because like the teams we just mentioned, the Giants, the Falcons, really, any of those teams could totally get JJ as well. So there's some rumblings that the Patriots are interested in JJ at 3. So his outcomes and range is definitely out there as well. But I think we predict the Broncos or Vikings that 11 or 12 sweet spot. It could be the ultimate sweet spot, like in the middle of all the smoke and the McCarthy hype. So I think the Broncos and Vikings would be the best fit and situation for him as well. Kevin O'Connell and Sean Payton, two really good offensive minds that can mold this molding ball of clay with all the tools in the world. I'm confident he's going to be a good quarterback in any good situation just because of how many tools he has and the head he has on his shoulder. It's just so bright. So I am optimistic about JJ. I'm going to predict the Broncos. I just think Sean Payton has fallen in love with him. There's already been some leaks and stating that Sean Payton's already fallen in love with him, and I fully believe it because they just seem like the perfect compliments, both Illinois guys, and they have that same personality. So I'm gonna go Broncos. What about you?
Yeah, I obviously have the Vikings listed up here. And yeah, I think either of these teams honestly just make a lot of sense, given their head coaches. Kevin O'Connell and Sean Payton. This is a guy that could really thrive under both of their systems, and and is kind of a team first type of player, and really just has the most honestly upside out of most quarterbacks because we don't know exactly what we're getting out of JJ McCarthy. He is just a molding ball of clay, and he had the least amount of passing snaps and passing plays out of any quarterback in this draft class. So you're really just going off of traits, athleticism, and upside with him. And obviously, when that comes to teams doing that, they get excited that they can mold this guy into something. And it's just going to be another game of like who's gonna trade up first. Obviously the Vikings are ahead, might have a little bit more draft capital, but you know the Broncos just traded away Jerry Jeudy. The Broncos are fearless. They do not care. They have their front office, their coaches. They do not care. They will do anything for who they want. They are very aggressive, and so they're a team to be weary of. Um, but it is interesting because I do get the feeling I'm like, could he go as high as 3, or could he even, you know, I don't see a world where he falls past, if the Raiders are sticking there at 13. There's just too many quarterback needy teams to not take the upside of this guy. So, you have the smoke of people, "Well, maybe he falls out of the second or first round." And I don't see that. I don't see that. He's got too much potential. He's very athletic. And people are kind of like, "No, he's Brock Purdy." Okay, Brock Purdy's a really elite, good quarterback, and he's more athletic and bigger than Brock Purdy. So if that's what you're getting, great. You can mold him into something better than Brock Purdy. And, there's just no way. The Broncos and the Vikings, it's kind of a game of who's going to trade up, who can get a deal done to move up and get this guy. And it's almost like 50-50 at this point with who he plays for, if it's the Vikings or the Broncos, in my opinion. I don't really see any other team because I feel like these guys are going to be the two teams all in on him.
You said that perfectly. He's a suit up Brock Purdy, and more than half the league runs the Shanahan and McVay offense. A lot of these teams are going to be very interested in this guy, even the Dolphins, who have like a Tua, and for a fact McDaniel's going to be foaming at the mouth when he watches this guy. So a lot of teams are going to have a high, high demand on JJ McCarthy. So he's going to be pushed up boards, and we're both confident about that. We've been saying that since last year that, scouts have just been regarding this guy higher than national media, and he always has been respected very highly by the NFL. But with that, we'll go to two players and Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, who are kind of the opposite of JJ McCarthy. Like I said, more than half the NFL runs those McVay and Shanahan offenses, and Russ and Fields are kind of the odd man out, and those teams that need the Shanahan and McVay quarterback, they're really kind of odd man outs, and it's hard to predict a spot for the two because they don't really operate in that type of passing structure offense. So we'll start it off with Justin Fields trying to predict where he ultimately ends up. Coming off a good season, he really did. He had a lot to prove for the Bears last year. He really did do a good job. Started off rough and really picked things up to the point where the Bears were looking solid at the end of the year. And it was a question as to if they should trade that number 1 pick or not. But it's going to be the right move for both sides moving on and going to a new situation. And I think I'm going to predict the Patriots. I think that the Patriots ultimately will use a lot of their money on offensive line and weapons in the free agency, and they're going to spend that number 3 pick on Marvin Harrison or trade down. And I think Justin Fields can go into that situation and succeed. You got two Ohio State guys, Marvin Harrison and Justin Fields, playing backyard football together. I think it would be really fun. I think Justin could be better than he was on the Bears in that situation. So I think I'm confident that Fields is gonna be good in his new situation. It's just for the best. It's a good move on both sides.
Yeah, I really like where you put that. I really like the fit of him and Gerard Mayo. I feel like Gerard Mayo is a player's coach, and I feel like that's kind of what Fields needs to thrive, is kind of like that player's coach. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I really like that. But however, I put the Giants. Finding out the Giants do not like Daniel Jones, I think they will. I don't know. I just for quarterbacks, I was just thinking, I was like, I feel like they would be a team that could afford to give a second round pick, for Justin Fields, or I mean, he might even be traded for a third. I guess there wasn't much buzz for teams wanting Justin Fields, but I really feel like Justin Fields could go into that situation. They have a pretty staple offensive line. They have some defensive, talent, and I feel like Fields could be a good stepping stone or a good building block depending on how he does. It could be the start of getting rid of Daniel Jones. Maybe they could fetch some trade bait for Daniel Jones. I don't know, but I kind of like that feeling of Justin Fields in New York for the Giants, and I feel like he would be a good I just feel like he'd be a good stepping stone. I feel like if you have to move off of Daniel Jones in the middle of the season or whatever, you plug and play Justin Fields. He brings a little bit of a different dynamic to the football field, and he'd just be a good, stepping stone or building stone, depending on how you view him as a quarterback. I think he'd be a good building stone, but even if you want him to be, while you're trying to find that guy, I think he'd be a great plug and play guy.
Yeah, I like the fit with the Giants as well. I think Dable or Gerard Mayo, would definitely like to have him in that building. And he's a good team guy. The players and
Um,
teammates love Justin Fields. He's just a really good personality and bright guy. He's gonna be good wherever he goes. He's gonna be a fun, polarizing option. He's gonna be good in fantasy wherever he goes. So really fun player. Oh, with that, do you want to go on to Russ?
One more thing on Justin Fields, I want to say. Brian Dable, and that's kind of one of my biggest things I just blanked. But Brian Dable, his transformation of Josh Allen and what he's able to do and work with Josh Allen and turn him into. I like that same kind of outlook for Justin Fields with Brian Dable. I think Brian Dable's a good quarterback whisperer, and I think he would work really, really well with Justin Fields.
Yeah, I like that. A lot of links with like Jayden Daniels to the Giants. So similar thinking, just tapping into the upside with the high upside QB with Dable. I like that a lot. With that, we'll move on to Russell Wilson, recently released by the Denver Broncos. And it's hard to ultimately predict a spot. At first, I was thinking it would be a very small market just because there's not many teams that aren't like Shanahan and McVay schemes that need a quarterback. I think the team that makes the most sense would be the Steelers. It kind of feels like a something that would happen. Him and Mike Tomlin could, do some good things. They could be on the same page, and you know how good the Steelers team is and that culture. They're always going to be in games and in the playoff race, really. So I think that if he went to the Steelers, him and Tomlin would definitely succeed, and it would be a good situation. I think that's definitely the favorite right now. I think he's meeting with them like currently, actually. Um, Another team we have up there, the Giants. He just barely met with them. Kind of showed all their cards in the Daniel Jones situation as well. So they're definitely looking to get a quarterback. I could see Russ just going in there just if they want a nice veteran that can play some safe football. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Steelers are ultimately going to be the spot for Russ. You have Kenny Pickett. You benched him for Mason Rudolph in a playoff game. I think you got to bring in a quarterback. So I think the Steelers make the most sense, but I like both options.
Yeah, the Steelers picking up pick. The Steelers just feel like they're always. Mike Tomlin has been competitive with Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, and Mitchell Trubisky for like the last 3 years. Um, if he just had, I mean, I'm not saying Russell Wilson at this point is a good quarterback, but if he just had a semi decent quarterback in that quarterback room, they're serious playoff contenders. And I think Russell Wilson slides in there and fits and can fit into that scheme, no problem. I think his deep ball would match really well with George Pickens. I mean, they got Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, so Russell Wilson and a good run game. They can and a good defense, and that's what Russell Wilson has always thrived under. Is just when you have a really loaded team, and and a really really good good head coach. And so Mike Tomlin just makes all the sense in the world to me for Russell Wilson going there. Obviously, these are the two teams. I think, yeah, I don't remember in which order, but I think he was with the Steelers and then he's flying to New York, or he's on his way to New York.
Yeah, he was in New York and then he was flying to Pittsburgh, I think. So I think
Oh,
he's like just barely met with the Steelers or he's doing it like right now. But
yeah, which is interesting. I think this news will honestly break semi soon. I
mhm.
think in the next day or two, we'll see where Russell Wilson ends up landing. But yeah, it's one of these two teams. I don't really see any other fits for him, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I ultimately think it's going to be Mike Tomlin, the Steelers. Mike Tomlin, they're at pick number 20. They're in just an awkward enough spot where they can't really get anyone. So, bringing in a veteran quarterback just makes too much sense for the Steelers, which I would honestly like Joe Flacco on the Steelers, to be honest with you. But yeah, Russell Wilson just makes a lot of sense. I still feel like he has maybe 1 to 2 okay years he can go play. But yeah, in the Steelers organization and their winning culture, I think that he would actually mesh in there pretty well.
Yeah, and the Raiders are definitely, I think, the third team out. That next team, he gets to play against the Broncos twice. That's definitely a plus. And I could see the Raiders being a long shot option. And I don't know if he's going to sign right now. It's Russell Wilson. The guy is so dramatic. I feel like he's going to do his little Russell Wilson tour around the country and meet with a few teams and wait till the news has kind of died down and it's quiet for him to sign. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Russell Wilson's gonna he wants to make a splash, and what would the splash be when everyone else is signing?
And
So
and if Russ doesn't go to the Steelers, I think Ryan Tannehill is probably going to ultimately be a Steeler. So watch out for that as well. But with that, do you want to get under our last two guys? We'll talk about quarterback wise.
yes, sir.
All right, it's going to be two rookies. We have them bunched in together because they're kind of the same person. They're kind of going to be drafted into those same situations. Those same teams are going to be interested in both of them. I don't know what it is about these two guys, but they're always just bunched in together. They were in the final three for the Heisman voting. They played each other twice this year. They played each other in the Pac-12 championship. They always and they were both Senior Bowl quarterbacks. So yeah, interesting. They were always bunched in together, but. We'll start it off with Michael Penix. I think the obvious fit is going to the Seattle Seahawks. You've got his offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, however you say it, um, heading to the Seahawks. So staying in Seattle, it's just the perfectly dream fit. You get to sit behind Gino for a year, and then you can insert into that lineup. And I think he could be good for the Seahawks in a situation like that where you are in a plus situation, familiar with your offensive coordinator. You're at home and you have a year to sit. I think Penix could really succeed. I'm higher on Penix than most people just because he has so many haters. He gets so much crap for just everything. He's like one of the most shit on prospects in this whole class for really no reason at all. He had like a CJ Stroud game in that Texas playoff game and he didn't get any respect for it. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think he's definitely going to be, a good pick for someone because he's probably going to be the last of these quarterbacks selected and he's going to be a value. So I like the Seahawks. I think it's the obvious one. The Vikings would be fun as well. I could see him starting day one. So I think teams like the Vikings, Patriots, Broncos, teams that need to start a quarterback day one, ultimately will be in on him. But what are you thinking about Penix?
Yeah, no, the fit in Seattle just makes too much sense. Staying in the home state, I mean, Gino, he's pretty much on the last year of his contract. I think the Seattle will ultimately move off of Gino. And what a smooth transition for Michael Penix. You get to sit for 1 year, learn the offense, feel comfortable in the system, and then ultimately be the starter there in Seattle. And I feel like he fits that scheme. I feel like he fits that system. He gets to go have incredible receivers in DK, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. And yeah, it seems like the best fit for him. And that's I think we're kind of falling in love with the fit here. And Seattle, they're in a spot where they need to start thinking about life after Geno. I think they're at that point. So I really, really like the fit. But yeah, with both of these guys, you can kind of clump them into like a handful of teams. Like they make sense. Like Bo Nix makes sense in Seattle too. They make sense for the Patriots. They make sense for the Broncos. And yeah, like for the teams that miss out, the Broncos miss out on JJ McCarthy. I think you can probably pencil one of these two to the Broncos. So given how that domino falls come draft day, the Broncos may trade down a few spots or may trade back up into the first round. But if JJ McCarthy's not a Bronco, I think you can pencil at least one of these two as a Bronco.
Yeah, and similar staying in the AFC West, if the Raiders, don't get Jayden Daniels, they don't get Russ, I think one of these two guys will be competing with Aiden O'Connell for that starting job day one. And I could see both of these guys starting day one, and I think they'd be fine in a good situation. I could see both these guys succeeding, and I could see both these guys being top half quarterbacks in the league in a good situation. Like I really think all these top five quarterbacks are those type of players. Maybe I'm just being too optimistic, too high, and I need to nitpick more, but I really do think in the right situation, all these quarterbacks are capable of starting day one and being, like top half quarterbacks, like, better than Tua for sure. So I don't know. I think I like all these quarterbacks. I'm interested to see where they end up. Anything else you want to say in them before we move on to the top available free agents?
Yeah, and I think like one thing with how the NFL views prospects is like you've seen the development process of Bo Nix, and like Bo Nix has been in college for so long. You've seen how he was terrible, and he's just really developed into something good. And so you kind of feel like you already know Bo Nix upside, and that's where teams like fall in love with like JJ McCarthy's and guys who haven't hit their ceilings yet and who are a little bit younger. And so that's kind of where you get that from. That's why these guys are ultimately falling because they've just been around for a little too long. But yeah, it's going to be fun, man. They're going to be good quarterbacks, and it's going to be fun to see where they end up.
All right, and with that, do you want to move on to our predictions for these top available free agents? A lot of guys recently getting cut, a lot of new free agents that we got to predict. So let's start it off with Justin Simmons. I just want to talk about Justin Simmons because he just barely got cut, and he's a very just good safety. He's been an All-Pro candidate for like every year for the last 5 years, and he's going to be a good impact wherever he goes. He's going to go to a contender, and I think the obvious choice would be the Eagles with Vic Fangio. Reuniting with Vic. I think the Dolphins would have been a good choice if he was still there. But ultimately, going back to the Eagles, who need secondary help more than anyone on earth, and you get Justin Simmons in there to shore up that safety room, replace Kevin Byard. I think that's just perfect. Anything else you want to say on Justin Simmons? Anywhere else that you could see?
One dream fit I'd have for Justin Simmons is the Chargers. Just imagine him, free safety, Derwin James, that box safety, strong safety role. Oh, it'd be perfect. But yeah, no, the fit that makes the most sense is him reuniting with Vic Fangio in Philadelphia. It's too obvious.
All right, and then let's talk about all these insane running backs together. Let's talk about Saquon, Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs together. I mean, there are some good running backs. It's crazy to say all of them are available. What are you thinking about Saquon, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry? I think like the Chargers, Texans are two teams that you could almost lock in for two of them. The Eagles and Ravens are in there. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, it's gonna be. I mean, the running back's gonna be fun because this is big in fantasy implications. We're big fantasy guys. We'll be start doing some big fantasy content coming up here soon. But this has big fantasy implications. And yeah, Saquon Barkley right now is the betting favorite to go to the Texans, and I think that just makes too much sense. He's following their team, all the social media stuff. He's following all their players. Put him in there with CJ Stroud. You got an electric running back. They've been desperately missing that for years. And then Derrick Henry, man, people are not gonna. They're like, oh, he's declining. I don't think people realize how good Derrick Henry did with such a horrible offensive line. I think Derrick Henry still got a year, probably actually 2, 3 years left in the tank. He's kind of he's been a generational running back. He's one of the best running backs of all time, and his game did not age. He just had a horrible offensive line. And so, put Derrick Henry, in like a Jim Harbaugh scheme. We beef up that offensive line. I'm sorry, the Chargers are a fit for most of these running backs. I'm not being biased. I'm not being biased. I'm a Chargers fan. I just really love the fit. They're obviously Austin Eckler is gone. They need a big bruiser running back for that Greg Roman offense. And obviously, even, you think about the Ravens. The Ravens, all their running backs are free agents. Either one of these two, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, would kill it in either one of those systems.
Yeah, so I like if I was to predict where these guys land on the spot, Saquon is going to the Texans. Saquon, you are a Texan.
Agreed.
I'm going to save Josh Jacobs for last. Derrick Henry, you are either Eagle or Raven. It's hard to choose. I'm going to say Ravens. I think the Ravens are really close to trading for him at the deadline. I'm going to go with Derrick Henry to the Ravens. And then Josh Jacobs is between two AFC West teams. You might be surprised, but I think the Broncos are going to be in on Josh Jacobs. So I'm going to say
Oh!
Broncos or Chargers for Josh Jacobs just because they've been punished by this guy, Josh Jacobs, for so long. They're so familiar with this guy, with how dominant he is. You can really lean on Josh Jacobs and he can win you games. And I know the Broncos and Chargers have both been victim to that. So I could see that.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are actually the betting favorites for Josh Jacobs right now. So yeah, I love it. Keep Josh Jacobs in the AFC West, and let's give the Raiders a little bit of their own, medicine.
All right, and let's talk about Christian Wilkins, who, as we predicted in our free agency top free agents episode, that he would walk. Where do you see Christian Wilkins going?
Colts. The Colts got to go big fish hunting. I feel like Christian Wilkins is a Colt type of player, a Chris Ballard type of player. They need a guy that can rush and stop the run. You plug and play Christian Wilkins in there. It's too good of a fit. A second fit for me would be the Bears, but I think Christian Wilkins will be a Colt.
Yeah, I think Vikings as well. I think we had the Vikings and Colts in our predictions episode, and I think that's ultimately where he ends up. I could see like the Texans, AFC South could definitely be in the play for him. He's going to be good though. Wherever he goes is going to be an impact. I think Tyron Smith is interesting. People were saying that the Patriots would be interested in Tyron Smith. They need offensive line, so like I could definitely see that. I guess Tyron Smith, I might just predict the Patriots because that's the only link I've seen with Tyron, but he could really go anywhere and be a good impact. You know what? The Jets too. I think I saw the Jets were linked with Tyron Smith, and that's beautiful. A lot more reliable than Bakhtiari. I think I'm actually going to predict the Jets. I think they're going to go with him over Bakhtiari.
Yeah, I like that a lot. This is just a team that's in a Super Bowl window right now. Obviously, I can see the Chiefs too, getting in for some stupid cheap deal because that obviously I predict that with everything and it always happens. But yeah, I think the Chiefs would make a lot of sense to me, a team that needs a tackle that's in a Super Bowl window and he can just go plug and play for a year or two.
Yep. And then Chase Young, Daniil Hunter, two really good edge rushers. One's, Daniil's a little bit more proven and has a little bit more of an impact right now, day one, but Chase Young's a little bit younger with some more upside and, coming off a pretty good season for the Niners. I actually think Chase Young might just stay with the Niners. I could see him going to the Jaguars. That feels like a good fit. I could see the Jaguars. It eliminates edge being a need for the draft. What are you thinking about Chase Young and Hunter? For Hunter, I think it's going to be a contender though.
Yeah, I agree with that. Chase Young to me, I think the Falcons. Falcons are desperate for some edge rush help. I think Chase Young is an immediate upgrade over what they have right now. I think that would allow them, to not have to take an edge quite as early. I think that still they're going to have to hit it somewhat third, fourth, fifth round in the draft. But I think this allows them to not do it in the first two rounds. And yeah, the Falcons desperate need of some edge help. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And Daniil Hunter, again, a contender. I think the Ravens, Kyle Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowney are probably gone. Daniil Hunter could be a plug and play guy for a year. Will they go and compete for a Super Bowl? But yeah, I think I really like the Ravens fit for Daniil Hunter. I think that would be some star power and immediate contender. And weirdly enough, maybe, just maybe the Eagles. I know they're Fletcher Cox did just retire. I know he's defensive tackle, but it kind of looks like they're looking to revamp that room. And I wouldn't even be surprised if the Eagles end up trading Hassan Reddick at some point this offseason. I don't know if they will, but they're kind of weird like that. And there's been rumors floating around. So Daniil Hunter would be, a good replacement if they move off of Hassan Reddick.
Great shout. So I don't even think you saw this went really under the radar yesterday, but the Eagles didn't only give Hassan Reddick permission to seek trade, they gave Josh Sweat permission to seek trade. So now they're going to be trading their two really good edge rushers. So I think their plan is to start Nolan Smith on one edge, and they're going to bring in one of these top free agents as the other edge rusher. I really do think they're going to move off of Sweat and Reddick, and I think Hunter's actually an Eagle. I think I kind of forgot about that, and I think Hunter's going to be an Eagle. Maybe that's their plan. It's just going for that big time edge rusher to really boost them on the back end of things. And if they get Hunter and Simmons, that's pretty electric.
Yeah, would absolutely love to see it. And yeah, I did see that article yesterday. I didn't actually even put two and two together until you just said that, just barely. But yeah, Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick both seeking trade. Looks like the Eagles may be pretty proactive. I mean, Howie Roseman is a genius GM. He's looking to get ahead of the cap and everything. And he plays this game very, very well. So anything that Howie Roseman does or why he'd be allowing that, it's for a reason.
And then Calvin Ridley, I thought he was going to be a Brown. I just felt like he was going to be a Brown, but now Jerry Judy's a Brown. Um, it is hard to predict. I think the Patriots are going to be the team I predict for Calvin Ridley. They're just looking for a receiver. They're feeding for a receiver, and I think he's going to be that top free agent receiver. So I think the Patriots will throw a bag at Calvin, and they have been linked with him. Anyone else you could see?
Panthers. Panthers desperate need for a wide receiver. I think one of those teams makes a lot of sense. They have salary cap room. They desperately, desperately need wide receivers. Their wide receiver rooms are very weak and quite frankly horrible. So yeah, one of those two teams makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe even like a sneaky one, the Lions. They really do need a better wide receiver too, over Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond. You plug and play Calvin Ridley and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like those two together.
The Bears, you have Caleb Williams, Calvin Ridley. That could be fun. You give Patrick Mahomes, Calvin Ridley. We kind of have PTSD from the Chiefs signing every free agent. I could see that honestly.
I mean, the Bills, if and when they decide to move off of Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs, I think he could be a really fun threat with Josh Allen. So there's quite a bit of teams that Calvin really makes sense for. But yeah, I think ultimately it's going to be one of the teams who's desperate for a wide receiver. And so, like you said, the Patriots or the Panthers, who just need to get their wide receiver rooms. They need to get players in their wide receiver rooms.
And then moving on to these linebackers, you see that the Seahawks have Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner as upcoming free agents, and uh, Devin Bush. So they have three linebacker free agents. So I think that Mike McDonald's going to bring in Patrick Queen. I think he's going to bring in the high-priced linebacker out of Baltimore who had a great season last year. I think Mike McDonald's going to want to keep him in that plus situation, that plus scheme for him. And I think he's going to go to Seattle and exceed in that situation. I could see Geno Stone, free agent safety, coming over from Baltimore to Seattle as well. So I think that could be really fun to watch out for.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I don't really see another team other than the Seahawks with the familiarity and his breakout season with Mike McDonald. So yeah, absolutely love that. Jordan Brooks, I really, really like the fit of the Rams. The Rams are very familiar with him. Obviously, staying in the division. I think Jordan Brooks, the Rams could add, a little bit of power to their linebacker core, and I'd really like Jordan Brooks, and they're very, very familiar with him.
Yeah, Jordan Brooks is a tackling machine. He's going to be a steal wherever he goes. I actually kind of want my Broncos to get him with Josie Jules as a free agent. He'd be really fun. I think see the Cowboys going for him. A lot of teams will use that tackling machine. Jonathan Grenard's a Bear. Don't need to spend too much time talking about that. He's a Bear, no matter what. I could just see it. Leonard Williams is a Seahawk. I think it's pretty rumored that he's going to return. Mike McDonald wants him back.
Yeah, no, agree with those two. Not much to talk about there. I 100% agree. The Seahawks are in the works right now. They're trying to get a deal done probably today before he hits free agency. But yeah, it looks like Leonard Williams will be back. Mike Onwenu, Dan, who do you see Mike Onwenu, the top offensive lineman prospects?
Yeah, definitely the most versatile free agent offensive lineman. Can move anywhere, be a good tackle or guard, can play center for you. Out of Michigan, great prospect out of Michigan. Liked him a lot as a prospect. One of my more proud lineman evaluations. I was very high on him. He's going to be a Charger. I'll get out of the way. He's going to be a Charger. The Chargers have like one or two spots on that offensive line they really need to fill in, and he's going to be perfect for them because he can play tackle or guard. He allows you to have flexibility in the draft. He's a Charger with Harbaugh. Sadly, I hate it.
I absolutely love it. You love to see it. I also think another good team fit would be the Titans, who just need help at offensive line. It doesn't matter what it is; they just need help there on pretty much all five spots. So yeah, I like the Chargers or the Titans for Mike Onwenu.
Yeah, all these I don't think we're going to talk about Mekhi Becton here, but you can shoe in Mekhi Becton to the Titans just because they have Bill Callahan, the best offensive line coach at developing offensive linemen. You get any of these high upside linemen in Tennessee like Mekhi Becton, who has a lot to work on, you're probably betting well. So with that, we'll go into like Chauncey Gardner Johnson. I think he's probably like a Cardinal. I could see him going back with Gannon because Gannon really elevated his play. He really wasn't as good in Detroit. I'm positive Detroit's not bringing him back after his performance and his tackling performance in the playoffs. It was pretty rough. Kendall Fuller, Stephon Gilmore, probably more contender types. I could see Kendall Fuller just going anywhere that he could, be a good starter. I could see Kendall Fuller being like a Charger. Seems like a good place where he could go be a CB1. Stephon Gilmore will want to go to a contender. I could see Stephon Gilmore going to like, a team like that, like the Chargers or, maybe the Ravens or Niners or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, Stephon Gilmore make a lot of sense to me in like a Chiefs 1 year cheap deal too. I say this because the Chiefs first and foremost are Super Bowl front runners, of course. They've seemed to already re-sign most of their free agents. Drew Tranquill, obviously they tagged L'Jarius Sneed, who they'll probably end up getting a very high pick for. So yeah, I mean, you go get a veteran corner for a 1 year, try and three-peat, that make a lot of sense. Marquise Brown. he could be fun in a lot of. I picture Marquise Brown just going to a team with a big arm. Who has a big arm? Again, Chargers, Josh Allen, Chiefs, just quarterbacks with huge arms. I mean, if the Commanders end up draft, well, no, I don't really see the Commanders. They got a pretty set wide receiver room, but somebody who just has a big arm that can just throw it deep to Hollywood. I think that'd be a perfect fit.
And similar to Calvin Ridley, the Panthers, Patriots, a team that needs a wide receiver one, he could go in there and be that cheap wide receiver one option for you. Moving on, we'll do the top 25 here. Gabe Davis, he's a Chief, probably. Who needs a deep threat? I mean, the Chiefs can replace Marcus Valdes-Scantling with Gabe Davis. That's pretty freaky. So I guess you could kind of lock that one in. Jordan Poyer. I think Jordan Poyer, Trey White, one of them will be a Steeler. I think Trey White will be a Steeler. I don't know why he's not on this list actually, but I do see him being a good replacement for Patrick Peterson on the outside, opposite of Joey Porter. Jordan Poyer is hard to predict. I think Micah Hyde and Poyer are both free agents. Do you have any predictions for Poyer?
I was gonna say actually, I've had this one in my head, but I think Jordan Poyer and Mika Fitzpatrick would be just such a awesome, awesome safety duo. So the Pittsburgh Steelers would make a lot of sense to me there. I think that would be super fun. Another team, oh gosh, if I can bounce off the top of my head,
The Browns
honestly,
could be cool.
the Browns could be. The Bengals, that
Yeah,
would be another team I feel like would make a lot of sense for them. Um, Yeah, yeah. I think the Bengals or the Steelers would be my two top landing spots, and yeah, the Browns would make a lot of sense too.
yeah, I could actually totally see that. And then these two edge rushers, two good, impactful edge rushers, Bryce Huff and Zadarius Smith. It's looking like the Jets are going to let Bryce Huff walk, and I think that's an L. I think he's an absolute stud. So, you know what? Maybe the Eagles' plan is just to move off of their edge rushers and just get Bryce Huff. Maybe that is the Eagles' plan actually. So I'll throw the Eagles in as my prediction because I think that might just be their plan. Maybe it's not Daniel Hunter. I think ultimately the Eagles' edge rushers are going to be Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff next year.
That'd be pretty awesome fit. I'm gonna throw the Lions out there, pair Bryce Huff and Aiden Hutchinson together. The Lions desperately need another dominant edge rusher. I think Bryce Huff would fit into that Dan Campbell, defense just perfectly. So I think that'd be a fun fit.
Yeah, and like remember Folu Fadakowski got that big bag a few years ago with the Jaguars from the Jets. I could see the Jaguars paying Bryce Huff a bag as well. And then the last two guys we'll talk about here, Xavier McKinney and Devin White, two really good defensive guys. I can't believe the Giants let Xavier McKinney even touch free agency. So it looks like he's going to leave. I can't believe that. Bears are a really fun team that comes to mind. They had Brisker, but they just released Eddie Jackson. So having him, they just interviewed as safety that got released too. I think they actually just interviewed Jordan Poyer. So the Bears are interested in safety. I could totally see that fit. It would be really fun. Anyone else you see for McKinney?
Oh gosh, I just had a team in the top of my head and I just blanked it. Who was it? They just recently released a safety too.
Broncos.
No, but I will. Well, I'm thinking about who I want for Xavier McKinney. Buccaneers. I really liked Devin White for the Broncos. That was going to be my pick for them. Obviously, you got Josie Jewell who's going to be probably gone. I think pairing him with Alex Singleton. Is Alex Singleton a free agent too?
No, it's just Josie Jewell.
Okay, then Alex Singleton and Devin White would be an absolutely sexy tandem together. I think that would be super, super fun. I'd really love to see that. I think the Broncos would be my number one fit for Devin White.
As a Broncos fan, Devin White or Xavier McKinney are like two of the top guys I would really, really want. They would really boost that defense. And I think Devin White will leave. He needs a new situation. I could see the Vikings. Seems like a really, really perfect Brian Flores guy. Could see the Chargers who just released Eric Kendricks. Xavier McKinney is hard though. I feel like he's gonna be one of the more sought after free agents really because of his age and his impact last year was great. So I am interested to see where McKinney goes. It's hard to predict the fit. The Vikings could be another one, another team. Both the LA teams I could see. Xavier's got a lot of options. The Bengals would be really, really nice. There's a lot of options.
I think you could play all 32 teams in for one because he's just an absolute stud. But gosh, I feel like I had a perfect fit. Now I can't think of it. Oh,
Probably
the
the
Green Bay
Chargers.
Packers. Green Bay
Oh,
Packers. Moving off of Darnell Savage, the Green Bay Packers, I think would make a lot of sense. That's going to be my number one fit for 'em.
they have like one need, and it's that so the Packers would be so good. I mean, and the Packers are going to make a really fun signing too. So Yeah, that really fun. Like anyone else that stands out, any fits that really stand out to you, Levante David, Jadavian Clowney, DJ Reader is a really good free agent. I can't believe this though. He's going to be good for someone. Maybe he goes back to the Texans before he kind of
Ooh.
broke out. He was a Texan, so I could see that. Anything that really stands out to you? Bobby Wagner's probably a Cowboy.
Oh, Willie Gay. He's a free agent too. Wow. So they choose Drew Tranquil over Willie Gay, huh?
I think so.
Wow. So Willie Gay looks to be gone. Ali Al Aziz Al Shair. Sorry, excuse my language. I would love to see him on the Chargers. Chargers are so desperate at a linebacker. Jesse Minter defense needs linebackers. He'd be so perfect. Again, the Broncos would be another team. I think all
Dolphins.
the AFC West teams, the Raiders would make a lot of sense for him too. Gosh, I think all four AFC teams would honestly make a lot of sense. But I think the Chiefs are going to price themselves out of just trying to retain their own guys.
Yeah, I'll predict the Dolphins with Aziz Al-Shair. They signed a big name free agent linebacker from the Titans last year that I'm completely blanking on his name, David Long. So yeah,
Yeah.
you get Aziz Al-Shair with him. That really fun. You got two centers here, Mitch Morse and Lloyd Cushenberry. The Steelers just interviewed Mitch Morse. I think the Steelers sign Lloyd Cushenberry if they don't sign Morse. I think Cushenberry will be a Steeler. He's going to be priced out of Denver. He is way too expensive for the Broncos, who are really hurting with money right now. So last guy, exit hot take, Tony Pollard. Give me where Tony Pollard ends up.
It's not going to be very sexy, but I think he ultimately just resigns. I think he just resigns with the Cowboys. I don't think there's been much news about him going anywhere else. But I mean, I think Tony Pollard is honestly suited better as that change of pace RB2 back. And so I think pairing him, honestly, like the Colts, Zach Moss is going to be gone. I think the Colts have a ton of money. I think like a 1-2 punch of him and Jonathan Taylor would be absolutely electric. So that would be my sleeper team is the Colts.
You need to pair him with a premier backup running back for sure. You need a thunder and lightning approach with Tony Pollard. So I do think he's back as well. Cause see like the Chargers or where did Kellen Moore go? Kellen Moore went to the Eagles.
Eagles. Yep.
I could see the Eagles actually. I could totally see
Ooh.
it being the Eagles
Yeah,
anywhere.
no DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift's probably exiting for. Oh wow, yeah, very familiar. Kellen Moore. You know what? Go ahead and
Exit
lock
hot take. He's an
that.
Eagle.
He's an Eagle. Yes, sir. All right, boys, ladies and gentlemen, we are T minus like 12 hours away from the legal tampering period starting. We will probably have an emergency podcast tomorrow just to go over all the crazy stuff that, players are allowed to verbally commit to teams. It's going to be absolutely madness tomorrow, Dan. I'm excited. I got like that Christmas Eve jitters right now. It's going to be nuts. This next week, we may be having emergency podcasts every night, so stay tuned. Turn on, the bell notification. Stay updated. We will be giving instant reaction, instant grades, emergency podcasts in the evening when things are going on. Might have some live breaking news on the pod. It'll be fun.
Yep. Tomorrow, Monday, is going to be the day where all the initial free agency signings
First
are
wave,
announced.
baby.
Yep.
First wave.
Yeah, the first wave, the big name free agents will sign on that day one usually. So gonna be really electric. I took work off to make sure I'm updated with all the news. So stay tuned to the NFL Seekers on Twitter, on Instagram. I'll be, posting our initial thoughts on all the news as it happens. And then yeah, we'll be posting a grading video of all the, the signings as they come. Like really we'll stay updated all week with all the signings and we'll do a mock draft, post wave one, day one, whatever. It's gonna be
It's gonna be a Monday night mock. So you're gonna get a Tuesday, it's still a Monday mock series, but we want to see how the dominoes fall tomorrow.
yeah, gonna be electric. Stay tuned to the NFL Seekers podcast. Thanks for staying tuned during this off season. We'll be grinding the off season content, but like, comment, subscribe for the algorithm. Peace.
Peace.